Welcome to Star Wars Timeline. In today's character highlight, we're discussing Ty Yorrick. We'll have a look at her background, check out her abilities and personality traits, and also discuss my personal opinion of this character and what to expect in the future. Before we get started, my name is Benjamin. I do Star Wars comic book and book reviews, character highlights, podcasts, and so forth. If you enjoy this sort of content, please hit that subscribe button, like the video, and let me know in the comments below if you're already familiar with Ty Yorrick and what are your personal thoughts on this character. Anyway, let's jump into it. Please be warned, there will be some spoilers because I will be discussing the book where she's from, which is The Rising Storm. Anyway, let's get started. So, who is Ty Yorrick? She's a Force-sensitive female Thalorian, and her vocation is a monster hunter. We also know from her background that she was a former Jedi Padawan, and she left the Jedi Order. As I mentioned before, her first appearance is in the second adult High Republic novel called Rising Storm by Kevin Scott. It's a hell of a book. I enjoyed it a great deal. And she was one of the new characters which I really got invested in. And this is the reason which I wanted to make this video, discuss her a little bit and try to speculate what's going to happen to her in the future, because it almost feels like she's going to be there for the long run. As I stated, she left the Jedi Order, and the first thing that she started doing on her own is being a merc for hire, and then she started monster hunting. During the days of the Great Republic and the High Republic, which we know as the Golden Age of the Jedi, which is about 232 years before the events of the prequel films, there is this great event which happens in the Rising Storm book, and it's called the Republic Fair, where the senator of Coruscant and all the free worlds of the galaxy are having this fair, and they're presenting their great works, and what a joy it is to be a part of this great republic. And something really, really terrible happens there, and the main antagonists of this series, the Nile, they attack the planet, and of course they want to disrupt all the fun, and they attack the civil population. Horrible things happen there. And in that time, Ty Yorrick ends up also being on that planet, and she serves as the bodyguard to this Kuranu female inventor called Mantisa and her daughter Clarin. A lot of stuff happens there. She gets tangled in a lot of problems. She tries to look after her own interests. And then later on, she's being enlisted by a Jedi Master, Elzar Mann, who sees her potential. He instantly recognizes that she has Jedi abilities. And of course, she wields a lightsaber in battle in several scenes. And he says, look, we need all hands on the deck that we can have. Please come join us. And she ends up helping out defeat the Nile and sort of build this very interesting relationship with Elzar Mann, because it's a scene where they kind of like mind meld, and they share their experiences, and they open one to another because the desperate situation of the Nile attack demanded it. What are her some personality traits and characteristics, and also powers? We know from this first book that she's a very resourceful person, and she's very self-assertive. She knows what she wants from this life, and she's basically distances herself from all the people. She doesn't like to stay in one spot. She's not very trusting of the strangers. She basically moves on from planet to planet, and she hires herself out as a monster hunter. And that's exactly where the book Rising Storm begins. One of the earlier scenes in that book is where she's basically doing that Witcher monster slaying mission, which for those of you guys who are obviously familiar with the Witcher books and video games and now the popular television show, think of that. It's very reminiscent. Plus, she has the lightsaber and, of course, the Jedi powers. We also learned that she has this hidden past with the Jedi Order, which is not quite detailed yet, but emotionally, there's a lot of reservations and a lot of, I don't want to say trauma, but the kind of past that she wants to bury, and the stuff that she doesn't want to discuss with anyone else, which builds more intrigue and makes you ask the question as the reader, hey, she's an interesting character. What could have happened to her before that she had to leave the Jedi Order, and why would the Jedi Order allow that to happen? Is that something that was normal back in the day? Because once again, I'm reminding you guys, this is some 200 plus years before the events of the prequel films. So we're living in the days of the golden age of the Republic and the Jedi. Perhaps they kind of had different ideas who can and can't join the Jedi Order. Also, we see one of her powers in the book. There's a point where in this great fair, there's a zoo with these exotic creatures, and two of them are basically described as these flying lizards, essentially dragons. And there's a very cool scene where Elzarman and her together are able to take control of two of those creatures and fly them into the heat of combat and defeat some of the Nile fighters, which I felt it was pretty awesome, pretty interesting scene, and gives you an idea that even though she was a Padawan before, she wields some considerable Jedi skills. Again, making you question, was she some sort of a protege, or who was she as the person? And once again, why did she leave? Anyway, there's not much to go on in terms of her personal background because, as I said, we only know about her, as far as I know, from this one book, and I know that she will appear in the future High Republic books. I believe the new young reader novel, Out of the Shadows, also features her in some capacity. I haven't read the book yet, so I can't tell you there. But I wanted to talk about my impression of Ty Yorrick and what I hope to see in the future with this character. First and foremost, it was really interesting and appealing to see somebody who leaves the Jedi Order, which we don't see that in the prequel movies, and obviously for the exception of Anakin, who becomes a Sith Lord, you know, he abandons everything the Jedi taught him. It's not a common practice for them to do that. And it's both a question towards her as a character, you know, what could have incited that she left the Order. Maybe there was some even love interest or sort of relationship which kind of interrupted her studies. Or is the Jedi Order something that was more lenient with people coming and going and saying, look, if this is not what you want to do at this point in your life, you feel that your calling is something else, perhaps you need to distance yourself from the Order. I found it quite intriguing. I also found the relationship between her and Elzarman, the Jedi Master, very, very interesting. First of all, Elzarman himself, he's like walking that fine line between a chaotic good Jedi, sort of like Qui-Gon Jinn, and somebody who you would probably describe as the Gray Jedi. Now, I know officially it's not a thing. It wasn't a thing in the Legends, neither in canon. It's something that fans have kind of like labeled the Jedi who are neither good or bad, but they know the fine line between the good and evil, and they walk that narrow path in between. Another great example of that would be Quinlan Vos, a very, very popular Kifar Jedi from the old school, Republic, the prequels era comic books and novels as well. So he was pretty cool. He also shows up in a Clone Wars series. You could check out, just Google Quinlan Vos, another great example of that. And Ty Yorrick's relationship to him and a meaningful scene between the two where they have no other choice. They have to open up emotionally and share memories with one another because that's the way that they could control these flying creatures and also assess the situation around them, because the Nile used this poisonous gas that kind of disrupts the Jedi, and it's actually a quite effective weapon against them. And the fact that she did that, connect with him, and now they have this very kind of like flirtatious banter between the two as they're defeating the Nile and fighting together for a single goal. I found it very amusing, and she almost pokes fun with Elzarman because, once again, in this period, the Jedi are not discouraged to have kind of flings, so to speak. They're not allowed to have families or completely dedicate themselves to and form complete attachments, but they're also not regulated. They can go and have, like, you know, a sexual experience and so forth, which I find quite in line with the original Star Wars films, because when we talk about Luke Skywalker and his father in the context of the original films, I mean, it's kind of silly that the Jedi were these celibate monks. That's not what the original trilogy is about. It's a family saga. And Luke Skywalker and Vader, it's almost a look at the Force-sensitive lineage of people. And here, in this context, it also makes sense. Elzarman is somebody who has, you know, these flings with different females. But now this one captures his eye because she's resourceful, she's capable. She also has a relationship with the Jedi Order, which kind of has been severed. It was very fun to watch the interaction between the two. And last but not least, I loved her vocation as a monster hunter. It's something that we do not commonly find in the legends or the canon books of the Star Wars. I honestly read quite a few books, and as you guys, for those of you who know my channel, I review a lot of these legends books. I can't recall any major or minor Jedi character who is specifically a monster hunter. That's, to me, and you feel free to correct me in the comments below and let me know if I'm mistaking or if I'm forgetting something. But she is sort of the first one. She breaks that ground where she's a monster hunter. She's a monster slayer. She's employing her Jedi skills that she has learned in a very non-traditional way. And it's appealing to me. You know, you establish the rule, you have this idea and notion what the Jedi allow you to do, and she breaks the mold. She swims against the current. That is always interesting to me because it sets up for a lot of drama and a lot of interesting, intense moments and storylines. What do I hope to see in the future? Well, I definitely want to delve into her past. I don't necessarily want every single minute detail of her past explored, I mean, from childhood to present, but give us some sense of what happened. Why did she leave the Jedi Order? What transpired there? It's, you know, I believe that an appeal of any character is knowing how to balance the mystery and not reveal too much, and how to give us enough and keep building this character, especially in the present time, that, you know, makes you root for the character and make you worry for them, and you want them to survive, you know, if they're the good guy. Another thing that I want to see with Ty Yorrick is the exploration of the Jedi love. You know, we saw how George Lucas establishes the idea in the prequel films that Jedi are not supposed to have attachments, and Anakin was so almost sort of condemned for having this relationship with Padme, and all those fears, feeding into his fears that she might die, and that led down to his fall as a Jedi. But then George Lucas in 2008 begins the Clone Wars television series, and he explores the same idea with Obi-Wan Kenobi, that him and Duchess Satine of the Mandalore, they had a romantic relationship as well. Again, brilliant example of setting up a formula, setting a standard of what is supposed to be within this lore, and then turning it up on its head. And this is what you have with Obi-Wan Kenobi, and this is what I hope will happen between Ty Yorrick and Elzar Mann. I'm really looking forward to seeing that, because I honestly wasn't a big fan of the celibate Jedi monks who are not supposed to form attachments, because once again, to reiterate, the entire Luke Skywalker saga revolves around family. So there it is. And the last but not least, in terms of my hopes for the future of this character, is I would like to see a closer look at the Jedi Order and their traditions during the times of the High Republic, which is, again, 230 years before what we see in the Jedi Order, which is quite different. A lot of prequel fans argue that the Jedi are in their lowest bottom during the prequels. They have fallen. They have steered away from their actual goal, and they became too much of politicians and too involved in the military, and this is why the Emperor Palpatine was able to defeat them. Here, the story is quite different. This is the height of the Jedi. They're noble, they're fulfilling their missions and as the guardians of peace. And I want to find out what happens to people who join this Jedi Order. Do they necessarily have to be younglings? Because once again, to me, it was a terrible idea that it was an infant or a young person ripped away from his family and taken to the Jedi Order because, you know, they're force sensitive. What if somebody willingly steps through the doors and say, hey, I want to learn about the Force. I want to be a Jedi. Or if, let's say, they're not performing to the best of their abilities, or like Anakin Skywalker says in the episode 2, like, look, I don't think I'm the Jedi that I should be. I want more. And I know that's not the right thing to ask. What if because nobody's perfect, you know? And what if a Jedi trainee, a Padawan, experienced something like that, as we have seen with Ty Yorrick, and decides to leave the Jedi Order? What are the ramifications of that? How does their life continue and go on? Will they be ever admitted back into the Jedi Order, and so forth? Anyway, guys, I really enjoyed Ty Yorrick. I would love to hear your thoughts and opinions on this character, on the Rising Storm, and on the whole, the High Republic story so far, if you enjoyed, what kind of problems you find with it, and so forth. Anyway, as I said, my name is Benjamin. I do Star Wars comic book and book reviews, character highlights, lore videos. I have my podcast. If you enjoyed this video, please support my channel, subscribe, hit that like button. I really appreciate your time, and I'll see you next time.